Yo, what's good? It's your girl Crombie, and let's get into week 11. Let's go! As we get deeper into the season, it's really important to start to think about the playoffs and which teams in each conference have a chance to make it and potentially make a run for a Super Bowl. Let's start off with the AFC, where we have the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Colts, and then three teams vying for one of those wild card spots in the Raiders and also the Ravens. But are these teams ready for the playoffs? And when I look at the teams in the AFC, at least the ones that are top of their division, I think about the Steelers. They have yet to lose a game this season. They're battle tested. And then you take a look and you say, okay, what about the Bills? Well, the Bills, they've had a heartbreaking loss in the past couple weeks, but their defense at the beginning of the season, it wasn't that good. But they've started to come on as of late, and Josh Allen's kind of turning back into that quarterback from the beginning of the season. And then the Chiefs. How could we forget about the Chiefs here? Patrick Mahomes has been excellent. He has 25 touchdowns and only one interception. And we'll get into that a little bit more because right now, he's breaking a record. And then the Colts. Phillip Rivers has been reincarnated, but this time he's got a good defense and he's played better as of late after the Colts have come out of their bye and they're getting healthy. Not good for the rest of the AFC South, especially the Tennessee Titans, who aren't on this list if the playoffs were to happen today, but they've got a big matchup against the Ravens this week that could potentially put them back in the playoff race. But let's talk about the Raiders. They're getting ready to go up against a really good Kansas City Chiefs team that they beat earlier this season. So with the win, while they won't take over the division, they would at least have the head-to-head win, beating the Chiefs 2 times in this season. And then there's the Dolphins. They recently made a switch at quarterback where they now have Tua, and they're on a winning streak, and they are in contention right now to get the number 1 spot in their division if they can find a way to get wins and Buffalo ends up losing a few in the next couple of weeks. And finally, the Baltimore Ravens, a team that has recently suffered a ton of injuries but plays tough. But the offense, it's been stagnant. Lamar Jackson isn't the same MVP that we know from last season. And a lot of their key pieces that led to that prolific offense, they're not there. So we've talked a little bit about the AFC, but what about the NFC? It's the Packers, the Saints, the Eagles, ? And the Seahawks. But the Eagles, they don't belong. But let's talk about the top team, and that's the Packers. They played really well, but one thing that we've seen with this team is when they go up against tough defenses that really challenge their wide receivers and challenge that offensive line, they don't do well. And we saw that in that Tampa Bay game. But the Packers are still a really good team, and they've done so without some of their key pieces at points in Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. But the Saints, this is a team that's really interesting right now when we think about the NFC. We know Drew Brees is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Let's face it, it's going to happen. But right now, Drew Brees is on IR, and he has some cracked ribs, and they don't have a quarterback. This week, Sean Payton did name Taysom Hill as their starting quarterback, which baffled a lot of people, including myself. We all expected Jameis Winston to get the start, but now we know that's not going to happen. The Seahawks, they're coming off a big win against an Arizona team that they lost to earlier in the year. It really was a testament to their defense stepping up and stopping Kyler Murray and the Cards in that win. The real question is this the defense that Seattle's going to be moving forward? We know Jamal Adams was out during that stretch where they were giving up the most passing yards in their franchise history. But now that he's back, and now that they have Carlos Dunlap, is this a Super Bowl contender? Is Mr. Unlimited gonna take his team back to the playoffs? The Eagles. This is part part of the reason why I want to change the way that the playoffs are set up. The Eagles currently have 3 wins on the season, and they will be in a playoff game if they started today. And that's one of the concerns. They have 3 wins, but the NFC division that they're in, they have the best record. That's why they're leading. That's why they have this playoff spot. So that tells you about that division. I think that if the Eagles were to make the playoffs, I think that they have a first round exit, and the Giants may be the better team in their division, and that still could happen. We'll see what happens by the end of the season. And then we have the Bucks with that wild card spot. Obviously, New Orleans has already swept them in the head-to-head matchup in that division. So they're going to stay where they're at unless New Orleans goes on a losing streak and Tampa Bay continues to find ways to get wins with all of the pieces that they have there. Now, something that's really great about Tampa Bay right now is their defense has been playing really well together. And that really complements the offense that's finally starting to find their way. We've seen how volatile this team has been with the ups and downs and back and forth. But it finally looks like the offense and defense have found some cohesion, and they should be able to string quite a few games together to really make a strong push into the playoffs. But the Rams. This team has some of the best defensive players in the NFL. The issue is the offense has been struggling. And it has to do with Jared Goff, who has played okay, but when he's pressured, he's terrible. And that's exactly what opposing defenses are doing. They're pressuring Jared Goff and putting him in uncomfortable positions to get the ball down the field. Now, what does this mean for the Rams? One, they're going to have to find some consistency on offense to be able to keep up with some of the high-flying teams that we know in the NFC. But it's going to take more than just offense. The defense is going to have to continue to play at a high level. And then last but not least, running out the wild card spot is the Arizona Cardinals. And there's a lot of things that you can say about the Arizona Cardinals. But one thing that you can't say is that they're not tough. This team has no limitations, and if they can shore up some of those inefficiencies on their defense, I think that they could be a strong playoff contender, a team that nobody wants to see in the playoffs, with an accurate quarterback in Kyler Murray when he's at his best, but also when he's running the ball. While we know the playoffs don't start today, it's great to know about some of the teams that are in the race and what we can look forward to moving forward with these teams, and if there will be any shakeups from some of the teams at the bottom and some of the teams at the top. Let's get into top games of the week. So let's talk about our top games to watch this week. And the first one I want to talk about is the Rams at Tampa Bay, and it's Jared Goff versus Tom Brady. But there's a couple things to note about this. A couple of the key players that you think of, like Aaron Donald, he's actually never beat Tom Brady, and that includes the playoffs, and he's never sacked him either. Does that change this week? One thing to note, especially about this Tampa Bay defense, is that they've created over 120 quarterback pressures this year, and that's second in the league. Jared Goff, when he's pressured, he has a 37 passer rating. I'm really a little bit worried about Jared Goff in this one, just because Tampa Bay has been so efficient at getting to the quarterback, and especially because his passer rating dips so low when he's under pressure. But Tom Brady, the other quarterback, since week 5, he's 3 of 30 on passes of 20-plus air yards. Ouch. And those 3 passes that he did complete over 20-plus yards, they all happened in the same game, and it was against the Raiders. But when I think about the Rams versus Tampa Bay, I'm really thinking about that Rams defense. They haven't really allowed any quarterback to really get going. And the Rams are 2-2 when they play on the East Coast. And with only 3 losses on the season, it doesn't really bode well for the Rams heading over to Tampa Bay. I'm taking Tampa Bay, and that's merely because this game's in Tampa Bay. If the game was in LA, I would take the Rams here. I really like what they've been able to do on the defensive end. My real concerns are on the offense. They're only scoring 24 points per game, and that's the second lowest in the NFC. They're only in front of Philadelphia. And Philly has 3 wins this season. Not a place you want to be for a points per game perspective for the Rams. That's why I'm taking the Bucks. Let's go Tampa Bay. Our next matchup is the Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints. And this game is in New Orleans, but if you haven't heard, Drew Brees, he's out. And Taysom Hill, he's in. So what's interesting about this matchup is that nobody knows what the game plan is for Taysom Hill. What we know about Taysom Hill is that he's been the Swiss Army knife for the New Orleans Saints. And Sean Payton, he has an affinity for him. And that didn't change. And the New Orleans Saints, they paid him a ton of money as a backup. So I guess this week, we'll get to see if he'll be Drew Brees' successor. But in the meantime, they've got an Atlanta Falcons team that you can't sleep on. Their record is not indicative of what they've been able to do over the past few weeks. And since they fired Dan Quinn after that 0-5 start, Raheem Morris, their interim coach, he's 3-1. And this team is scoring more points per game than they did under Dan Quinn. But not just that, they also have some players back on defense that have contributed to their success. New Orleans, on the other hand, Alvin Kamara has been playing out of his mind, but he's never scored a touchdown versus the Atlanta Falcons in the 6 games that he's played in his career. That's pretty interesting to me, seeing that he has been a do-it-all back for the New Orleans Saints for the past few years. Now, one thing that I think that Atlanta wants to do this week is they want to play spoiler to the NFC South leading New Orleans Saints. And with Taysom Hill at quarterback and nobody really knowing what the New Orleans Saints are going to do, it should be a very interesting matchup. Look out for this Atlanta Falcons team to come out firing. I expect them to really push the ball down the field. We know that the New Orleans Saints don't give up a ton of rush yards. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher in 47 games. Wow. Woof. All that. But this week, I'm taking the New Orleans Saints. And yes, I am unsure of what that offense is going to look like. I know if it doesn't look good, we'll see Jameis Winston. Yes, Jameis Winston is not starting. That's right. He's actually going to back up Taysom Hill in this one. So either way, I feel like it's a win-win for the Saints. You know what you're getting in Jameis Winston. He'll definitely push the ball down the field. It just might be to the other team. It's true. I know. Now, if this game was in Atlanta, I probably would take Atlanta here. But because it's in New Orleans and because there's just so much ambiguity around this Saints offense, I like it. So let's go Saints. So Kansas City Chiefs versus the Las Vegas Raiders. This one is in Las Vegas, and it should be a good one. And let me tell you why. In Week 5, these teams faced off, and the Raiders, they won 40-32 in Kansas City. And let me tell you, that left a bad taste in Kansas City's mouth. Not just because they lost the game, but news outlets would say that the Raiders, after the game, they took their bus and did a victory lap around the stadium. Now, John Gruden in an interview would say that the bus driver was nasty and they only did the victory lap because he had said some insensitive things about them. Either way, I loved it. I loved the victory lap. The only concern this week is that almost the whole Raiders defense is on the COVID reserve list, and they're not going to know until Sunday if some of their key defensive players are even going to play. That is a concern. Now, the other thing to note is Kansas City is coming off a bye, and if you know anything about Andy Reid, is that he gets his team prepared, especially coming out of a bye. He's 18-3 off of a bye, and that is the best streak among active coaches in the NFL. So, when coming off a bye, Andy Reid is your guy. That wasn't a part of what I don't know where that came from. We're going to keep moving here. Patrick Mahomes, let's talk about his quarterback. He's 25. He has 25 touchdowns and 1 interception. That is the best touchdown to interception ratio ever. Yes, I said ever. One of the things that I will say about the Raiders is when you think about the deep ball, you say Mahomes. But when you think about Derek Carr, next gen stats actually prove that he's the better quarterback. He's got a better completion percentage. He's got more yards, and his touchdown to interception ratio also better. But are you taking Derek Carr this week? I'm not. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs. Give me Andy Reid off of a bye, and give me a win in Vegas. And give me the Chiefs doing some type of celebration of a victory lap. I don't know. Can we get Nipsey Hussle on the sidelines? Something like that. I'd love to see it. Go Chiefs. Baltimore Ravens versus the Tennessee Titans. An AFC 2019 division playoff game. And the Titans, they won that game. And that's when Earl Thomas became a meme, when he was used as a blocker by Derrick Henry on one of many runs that led Derrick Henry to almost 200 yards. Now, this year's a little bit different. The Baltimore Ravens are coming in as the #1 scoring defense, and Tennessee's coming off of an up and down season where their kicker has been the make or break in some of those. There are definitely some key players in this game, and one that comes to mind immediately is Derrick Henry and what he'll be able to do against this Baltimore Ravens run defense. We know that Baltimore is down 2 of their run stuffers in Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams, and that should work very well for Derrick Henry and this Tennessee run game. I expect Tennessee to run all over the Ravens, just like the Patriots did last week. I do think that the Baltimore Ravens secondary will have an efficient day against Ryan Tannehill. I think there's some really good matchups on the outside. I actually have the Tennessee Titans winning this game merely off of the fact that Baltimore has not yet found their identity on the offensive side, and they've continued to make boneheaded mistakes and get called for penalties. So, give me the Titans in this game. The Green Bay Packers versus the Indianapolis Colts. You got Aaron Rodgers going into Indianapolis looking to get another big win against a tough AFC opponent. And since Matt LaFleur joined the Green Bay Packers as the head coach, Aaron Rodgers has only lost to one AFC team, and the rest of the AFC, he's 5-0, throwing over 300 yards, has 129 passer rating, and he's balling. But when I think about this Colts team, what's different is they have some similarities to the Tampa Bay Bucks team that really stuck it to the Packers. They play hard-nosed defense, and they're not afraid of somebody that's going to let it rip because they know on the back end they have elite corners that can take the ball away from even the best of quarterbacks. But on the other end, there's Phillip Rivers, who at the beginning of the season, he was the same old Phillip Rivers, but what we've noticed as of late is that he's played exceptional and he hasn't turned the ball over. Currently, he has a 100+ passer rating in 3 of his last 4 games, and he only had 1 in his first 5. So this Colts defense, they're getting healthy. The offense is playing well. Nyheim Hines is one of 2 running backs that lead their team in receptions, and they're finding ways to win. The Green Bay Packers, they got healthy too. Aaron Jones is back in the fold, and Devontae Adams has been back for a couple weeks. And while they're still waiting for some other wide receivers to get back in the fold, the Green Bay Packers too have found ways to win. But the next step in that process, beating another AFC team. And this week, I think the Colts get it done. I don't think that Green Bay plays well outside of Lambeau, but also you're going to Indianapolis against the toughest defense in the NFL. They're going to be able to get after Aaron Rodgers. I think that DeForest Buckner will be chasing him all day. I think that Darius Leonard, who doesn't get enough respect, will have respect on his name before the game is over. Give me the Colts. Let's talk about the rest of my picks for the week. We got Detroit Lions at the Carolina Panthers. Right now, Teddy Bridgewater is questionable to play, and if he plays, I'm taking Carolina here. if he is not playing. That's why I have Detroit selected. Give me Matt Stafford. I know that he's dealing with an injury to his thumb on his throwing hand. I still think the running back in Swift is going to make a huge difference in this game. Give me the Detroit Lions. Philadelphia Eagles at the Cleveland Browns. I am really uncomfortable with this game, and they said there are going to be some severe weather conditions in Cleveland. I know Carson Wentz is leading the league in fumbles and interceptions and sacks, but beginning of the season, he did it with no supporting cast. He had guys off the street. I'm telling you, these guys, you don't know who they are. He's finally getting his team back healthy, and that's huge. And I think that he'll be able to play better, and that's why I'm taking the Eagles. If the Eagles can't stop this Cleveland Browns run game, it's going to be a problem. But Cleveland is going to be missing Myles Garrett, and that is huge. That is big. He has the most sacks in the league right now. So having him out for this game due to COVID it's a big blow to the defense. Give me the Eagles. Steelers versus Jacksonville. I'd love to take Jacksonville here and say they're going to serve Pittsburgh their first loss of the year, but it's not going to happen. I know Pittsburgh is going to be going down to Jacksonville, and it should be a really interesting matchup, especially because Jacksonville played Green Bay really tough last week, and there were points where they led that game. Really think the Jaguars are playing tough. I don't think Luton, their quarterback who's stepping in for Minshew while he's out, he doesn't have enough juice to be able to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get after the quarterback. I'm really actually concerned about Luton. I think that he may throw a couple picks. Definitely going to be some turnovers in this game. And I think that Pittsburgh is going to be the team that forces them. Give me the Steelers. Houston Texans at New England Patriots. The Patriots lost a game this year that they should have won against a Buffalo Bills team. And a couple other games that they potentially could have won, they lost. And now they're going to be facing a Houston Texans team who's at the bottom of the AFC, one of the worst teams. But they play tough. Houston's really trying to refine their identity. And one of the greatest things about this team, though, is that they've got a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. And when they add pieces around him, they will be a team to be reckoned with. But until then, they're not going to beat the New England Patriots, who also need pieces around. But I really trust Bill Belichick here, and that's really where this pick is coming from. I'm going with Bill Belichick. Cincinnati Bengals at the Washington football team. This was another toss-up, and I wanted to take the Bengals here. I really was like, I want to take Joe Burrow, because you guys know I love Joe Burrow, but I just can't. I think the Washington football team, their defense is pretty tough. I like Alex Smith. I know he threw for 300-400 yards last week, but no touchdowns. I think that changes this week. Cincinnati does have a great safety in Jesse Bates, but he needs some additional help. And I don't think Joe Burrow has the help that he needs on the offensive side. And we know that the Washington football team, they can get after the quarterback. Joe Burrow was the #1 draft pick, and we know Chase Young, the #2 draft pick of this year, are basically going to be going up head-to-head. I think Chase is going to get a sack on Joe. I'm going to just call it like it is. And I'm taking the Washington football team here. Miami Dolphins at the Denver Broncos. Whew. Man, this is a tough one. I really have liked Miami in all the games they play at home, but now they go on the road and they're going into Denver against a Drew Lock-led Denver Broncos team that Drew Lock hasn't been playing that great for. And we know that he's dealing with some rib injuries. And if I'm Drew Lock, I don't want to see the Miami Dolphins and that defense who have been playing lights out. They literally have been carrying this team. I know Tua has been the quarterback that everybody's talking about, but it's been this Miami defense that has really set the standard and the tone for what this team can do and how far they can go. With that said, because they have the better defense, I think they can get Drew Lock to turn the ball over. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins here. New York Jets at the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost took the Jets here, and I know the Jets are 0-9, like they don't have a win on the season, but check me out. The Chargers are 3-16 in one-score games. Not good. But the Jets, they don't have a win yet. Justin Herbert, he recently cut his hair. We know he had the flowing locks, and now he's got like the buzz cut. I don't know if changing his haircut is going to get them some of those wins, but I do think that Keenan Allen is going to have a big day up against this Jets defense. I just can't with the Jets. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers. I know that they have burned me in past weeks. Like, I picked them and it was just bad beats, like losing in the last final seconds of a game against the Denver Broncos. That doesn't happen this week. Give me the Chargers. Dallas Cowboys at Minnesota Vikings. The Cowboys, they get a Vikings team that come in with 4 wins. Only 2 more wins than they have. But this Vikings team could be in the playoffs right now. That's right. Mike Zimmer has this Vikings team playing after the bye better than they played all season. And they've completely turned around what was a lost season before the bye into what potentially could be a real push to get a few wins to end out the season. Now, I don't know if they make the playoffs because, well, you never know, because the NFC East is pretty bad. The Cowboys division. It's pretty bad. But let's talk about the game. Dalvin Cook is going to run all over the Dallas Cowboys. And I know they have DeMarcus Lawrence and they got all of these fast people. They got fast linebackers. They got all of that. Dalvin Cook, this guy is just playing. He's playing better than any other. He's better than any other running back in the league. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Dalvin Cook is the best running back in the league, and being the rushing leader this season thus far proves it. Especially because he missed games this season and he's still leading the league in rushing. Now, I think the Dallas Cowboys have a chance to win this game if the Vikings forfeit. We know that's not going to happen, so I'm going to tell you, I'm taking the Vikings here, and that's just basically because I haven't seen the Cowboys be able to generate enough offense. Andy Dalton will be back under center, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. Ezekiel Elliott still hasn't had a 100-yard rushing game this season. Give me the Minnesota Vikings. Give me Mike Zimmer fired up after starting the season with a losing record. Give me the Vikings. That's week 11 in the books. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I look forward to next Saturday and talking football with Crombie. Thank you.
Silly talk, you know I'm on walk, yeah. I got a mask and the main attraction, yeah. I run it up like Lamar Jackson, yeah. You think I'm a lame, I don't say much, but I'm hanging out the window, I'ma spray much, yeah. Niggas wanna go to war with a battle. Oh Lord, I'ma have to.